This is Insanity, Jeff Sokol, Part 2. I swear this guy lives rent-free in my head.
Well, that's why I came down, is to see if I had a connection with her.
Had a connection with a 13-year-old.
If you, what was your name again?
It's Detective Kelly.
Yeah, Detective Kelly did not like that. He did not like being asked his name again by this
I did not. I
douchebag.
probably can't digest them all right now,
Sure.
but I'm starting to try to look here.
Sure. But if you
Yeah, so he said he's having trouble digesting what he's looking at on the phone chat log. Again, I don't know why Tetrad Core did not provide that chat log to the detectives prior to them walking into this interrogation room. It's very strange.
you read a lot of it, the exchanges between me and her, I was always aware and scared of any consequences if I was to do something wrong, like if I was to have sex with her. And to be honest,
To be
yeah, of
honest,
course, from what I saw, she's, beautiful and everything, but
she's beautiful.
I-
He's talking about a
I'm not
13-year-old,
going to
and he's
admit-
calling her beautiful. So he has no sense of age boundaries. So he figures if this 13-year-old, who's really a decoy, if she acts mature and he considers her beautiful, then the rules go out the window.
going to risk
This guy's
anything
just-
by having sex
he's a
with her.
piece of
I
work.
just wanted to meet her and hang out with her, and I was going to go home.
You're going to meet her, hang out
I
with
can't
her.
trust anybody, and obviously now, even more so, but.
Yeah, even more so now that
How do you
we've
think-
been
how
caught
do you
up in a
think we
police
and
sting.
she feel?
Yeah, there
See,
you go,
I
Detective
get it,
Kelly.
I
He's like,
get it, you guys.
We're trying to
he's
protect.
like, you can't trust anyone. What about us?
Vulnerable,
We
right?
can't even trust a
Just like when you
44-year-old
were
to
that
keep it in
age,
his
I was
pants
that age,
and not
you
try to
want
fuck a
some
13-year-old.
guy, attacking you,
He's dangerous, yeah. Of course not.
or maybe he just has bad intentions. When you
Look at Sokol's pose here. I think why I can't stop watching this interrogation is because I can't fucking believe what I'm seeing. It's a lot like the Jim Roush interrogation where you're like, this can't be happening. This guy is delusional to the point where it's comedy. It writes itself. It's just comedy that's out of this fucking world.
were 12 or 14 years old, if there was some guy in your life, or appeared in your life, who's in his 40s, and is talking about having sex with you and different things, isn't it your parents and the police and the school system's job to kind of protect you?
No, he's got no understanding about that.
And sometimes if you're not being like totally honest with your parents or, community people, the only alternative sometimes we have is to do it.
Does not relate, does not compute. He doesn't understand boundaries. He doesn't understand age
You're not gonna
boundaries.
tell anybody. You're so paranoid about it, you're researching the statutes,
Researching the statutes.
right?
Right, and when
And I'm sure in here, there's probably conversations with a girl.
So I think the thing about Sokol is why he acts so cocksure justified in his actions is because in his head, he's thinking, look, I've taken all these steps to research statutes and come up with this marriage contract idea. And, in the inside of his own head, he's like made this supposed decision that he's not going to fuck Bailey, the decoy, when he gets to her house. Because he's done all that, then how dare this detective, how dare the police department and society in general judge him? That's what's going on inside Sokol's head. He almost feels offended that after taking all these steps and trying to play by society's rules, how dare anyone judge or question his motives?
About you didn't tell anybody about this, right, or something like that, because you're afraid of and you didn't go when the parents were home. If it's wonderful, then yeah, if your parents are home, that's great. I'd love to meet them. No, your parents aren't home, right? Kind of thing. They're away. They're not coming home. Whatever.
Yeah, I do like that argument. I can't remember the predator now that that police also use that tactic with. But it's the whole idea of, look, if your intentions were pure, then why didn't you visit when the parents were home? Why didn't you? And it's, I mean, it's kind of it's a rhetorical question, because obviously, even if a 44-year-old's intentions were pure, they wouldn't visit a 13-year-old when the parents were home and say, hey, I was just talking to your daughter over the internet. Is it cool if I hang out with them? You know, because they know every parent would say, you know, I'm going to get a gun and get the fuck off my front porch. But it's a good argument, because it's essentially saying, look, you made clear efforts to visit only when the parents were gone for a reason. And you need to ask yourself what that reason is. It's a bad look. I mean, everything about this is horrible, but that in particular is a bad look. And I think that's very incriminating.
Yeah, I'm with you, yes.
And I think this probably goes back a long time. This does not happen overnight. I'm a little bit older than you. You know, whatever my
This is a weird
makeup
statement.
is physiologically and emotionally and every other way.
I don't know,
It's
Detective
not
Kelly, I don't really want to think about your physiology or your
Probably have
emotions.
these fantasies, desires,
It's kinda spooky.
Interests, probably your whole life. Right?
Probably a nice guy, but
Or until you became an adolescent or something.
Fantasies about what?
big
I'm
galoot.
assuming younger
I don't want to think about your physiology.
maybe as you got
Detective.
older, like you wanted to stay in that realm, like the younger girls, I like them better for whatever reason. You would have to tell me what the attraction is.
It's never happened before.
But we're talking like 12 years old. It's like 6th, 7th grade.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's a young human being.
Keeps saying 12.
Yeah, so there's that little clip right there has been played on other videos. He's now insisting that not 12, 13. So not 6th grade, 7th grade. Like, that makes a fucking difference, Jeff. Like, I don't know, I guess in his head, maybe when he was that age, it did make a difference, because that was right around when he hit puberty. And then, so that kind of his own like experiences with adolescence and sexual awakening at that age. So 12 to 13 may have been a huge jump for him, but it's not a huge fucking jump in the mind of someone that age. That does not justify what you're doing here. 12 or 13 makes no fucking difference in terms of someone's psychology or their ability to make decisions about sex.
You want me to use your term and say 14?
I mean, I know they're both young, but it's
Here he goes.
Yeah, different.
Is it being
Yeah,
a
there's a
teenager
difference.
that's the big hump that you need to hear? Like, okay, she's a teenager. She's 13, she's not 12. She's 14, she's not 12.
That's pretty good in part of Detective Kelly trying to pin him down, saying like, "Oh, so are you you're saying this
2
because
years under
13
the
would
age of majority.
make it okay in your mind?"
Certainly not, worldly or mature enough to consent to anything.
Exactly.
Right? Doesn't have the legal right to do it, never mind. Because why? Because they're very young, so they need to be protected.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
Why, if you thought I came down there to have sex, why didn't you wait and see if that happened?
This is a good reply right here
Why
by
would I
the
want to
detective.
put that girl that was in the house through any kind of a horrible experience that could get really out of hand really quickly?
Okay, I get
And
you.
no offense.
I got you, but
There was like
I don't mean having
several cops there and other able-bodied guys.
Yeah, they beat the shit out
You'd
of
be in
you.
probably some kind of pain at the end of it, because if you got maybe your clothes up and you're trying to grab her, we come in not knowing what you're capable of.
I know.
Why not do it like as much as we can as a gentleman? You're seated. Chris Hansen speaks to you.
Yeah, Chris
You're
Hansen
free to
exposes
go.
you and screws you for the rest of your life even more than you're screwed by the legal system.
Throw you on the ground or anything. We handcuffed you. We brought you.
Shout out to Hansen.
You know, I mean, why would you want to take it to another level where it's horrible? She has to go through that, what, several times? There's
Exactly.
several guys
She's
that-
got to like go through that with John Dupay, and I mean, you're pretty bad, but yeah, in terms of like sheer repulsiveness, John Toupee, she would Bailey, the decoy Bailey would have to go through that with
Well, maybe it is. I mean, I understand.
him
I understand
and
what you're
the
talking
fedora
about,
guy.
what you're told
Fuck
to
that.
She's probably a little freaked out by it. You know?
I mean, so cool with everything.
Jesse
and
Velez.
hang out
That
and-
was a male decoy though.
I mean, I honestly, that's why I was there.
God, I hate his pose.
I just,
I hate this.
my
You need to.
This.
my
You're just
case,
not
okay,
understanding
is-
me pose.
is obviously, there's a lot of text there,
Yeah.
But ignore all those texts.
there's,
Ignore that evidence.
I was trying
Ignore
to
those
do
clues
things.
that are sitting in front of you.
or, make it so I wasn't breaking the law. If I decided at some point that I wanted to, have any relations with her, I was trying to make sure that it was legal. Otherwise, I wasn't going to do anything.
Explain that a little bit.
Well, he's basically saying that he has
If I-
plausible
if I,
deniability. He's saying that
came down and-
because he's put all this research into how to make it legal, he wasn't going to do a thing. And not only was he not going to do a thing, how fucking dare you, Mr. Police Officer, accuse me when you can see in front of you that I took steps to make sure that it would be legal. So that's inside of Sokol's mind.
I didn't want to do anything that was breaking the law. So that's why I researched that stuff.
He thinks he should be excused.
I would never, I mean, that's like ridiculous that you guys thought that I would bring a contract.
Yeah, that reminds me of Tim
I
Isaac.
believe through your.
You're interpreting,
I don't know.
you're interpreting it, but I mean,
Well,
it's not-
maybe
It's like, I wasn't
don't
gonna
know, but I also
do
see that
anything
you're
or anything.
mentioning that a 44-year-old guy shouldn't be talking to a 13-year-old girl like this.
right, and so
That's
I
your,
felt
your,
guilty
your,
about it,
your
yeah.
language, not mine.
There's no age boundaries with you, guy.
And you
You don't
think
see
might
that
be
as a
the same
problem.
wavelength as her?
There's plenty of, young people I see on TV that are pretty smart, pretty mature.
You need to be looking at 13-year-olds with a protective
I
eye.
don't know. There
Not
could be a couple out
a-
there, I think, either they could be
She's my
mature, but they
sexual
look like a
equal
little
because
kid,
she's
they-
mature.
They look
Eye.
older, but they're very immature.
See, I don't
There's a
understand.
reason these laws are in place, right? I mean, to protect people.
Exactly.
Right, and I said that though.
Which, meaning what? I'm still, you kind of expounded on it before, being like, I want to do things, whether it's, so in case I did have feelings for her and I liked her, like it would be legal. I don't know what that means. She's still, let's just say 13, because you mentioned 13 right here.
And there you go. He had 13 in the
That'd
log.
still make it legal.
I don't know, she said she was turning 14. but-
Oh, okay. She said she was turning 14. So, what, 13 and a half?
How does it make what?
Oh, yeah. That's
You just
absolutely,
said that.
Jeff.
How
You're
would it make it
innocent.
okay if you're gonna do
You're free to
things
go,
with her
sir.
and she's 13, and you ultimately had a
Let me get your
relationship
keys
with
out of
her.
evidence.
Intercourse,
Get you your
however
car.
you
You're free to
It
go.
wouldn't unless her mom consented to marriage.
Well, how could her mom consent to marriage
You're
if
gonna marry
you're
a
visiting?
13-year-old girl,
Well,
their mother's
the mom's
Maybe-
away,
maybe-
I guess she's, the decoy said, on a trip to Dallas, Texas.
Why is that like?
So you just contradicted
so
yourself.
Hard to believe.
Why is it so hard to believe? This is good right here.
Why is it hard to believe?
Yeah, that could happen.
I can't say I've even ever heard of it. Actually,
If I wanted to like.
maybe in other countries it happens.
Yeah,
rather
other
than
countries,
break the
that's-
law, that's what I would have to do.
You would marry her now,
I haven't broken the law.
44, she's 13.
Yeah, I haven't broken the law. I mean, that's the thing. It's all like you're speculating what I was going to do.
Sokol is basically saying, why is it so hard to believe that I would want to have a romantic courtship with a 13-year-old? He asked that to Detective Kelly. And Detective Kelly, I think he was like stunned a little bit. He was like, I can't even imagine why you're asking me why it's hard to believe. It's like, your question itself is so wrong. I've just never heard of it. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, this isn't some, country where that's even plausible. you're in a Western country and you're asking that question, like you got me shook, bro.
Based on conversations.
You also drove here. You didn't just like have chats that were bad enough.
So what?
You actually drove 2 hours. You're like basically my age.
2.5.
You drove 2 hours to meet a girl. Most guys.
Right, you're putting it all together, right? Most guys, boys.
Most guys
You're putting it
younger
all
than us, our age.
Yeah, you're putting it all together as if you were investigating some kind of criminal case. That's totally unacceptable, right, Jeff?
Older than us. If given the opportunity, they might get in the car on a Saturday night and drive 2 hours if they think they're going to find, something that feels good at the end of the rainbow.
Gross.
They're just going to do it. Maybe
That's a
meet
gross
somebody.
way to put it,
You're
detective.
saying most guys, so it's like
You're driving from Boston.
you're saying most
Boston.
guys.
Right.
That's not me.
Well, where are you? Tell me who you are.
He thinks he's special. This is where the narcissism comes in. He's basically saying, you're saying most guys. I'm not like most guys. And how fucking dare you presume that I'm like most guys? I wasn't going to touch her. That's Jeff's argument that he's trying to convince the detective of. And that's not flying, dude.
And the behavior exhibited, I'd say you fit right in there. You just
Yep,
happen to like
you
them
fit right in
much
there.
younger than what's normal.
Maybe.
Or illegal.
Maybe I enjoy just.
You're just a little bit more scummy. You're a little bit more conniving. You're more intelligent than, say, a John Toupee, and you've tried to craft this wall of plausible deniability so that you'd have some kind of defense, given that you're sitting in this chair right now. And no, bro, you're just like Jesse Velez. You're like John Toupee. You're like all these other scumbags that showed up.
Talking about it. I don't know. I mean,
With a 12 or 13-year-old girl.
12 or 13?
That's a problem. I don't know you. I never saw you before in my life. That's a major league problem.
Major league problem. I don't know. I still don't care for Detective Kelly's style.
Compared to what? Like a 28-year-old woman? Like a
Major league
22-year-old
problem.
girl?
You're not in a sports bar, and you're not trying to convince some kid who stole a car to confess. You're talking to a twisted child predator. So I don't know, man. I think you gotta
12 or 13-year-old girl. And she's what,
use
acting
a
like
little
she's
bit more
18?
intelligent language.
Yeah, so what?
Major league
She still
problem.
tells you she's 13 years old. You're 44.
It's another famous clip.
I mean, seriously, that's a major league problem.
See, you're not reaching Jeff. Like you
what
haven't
he
swayed him.
in my head.
In your head, maybe.
Knowing what
Trying to hit him with your major league problem is not swaying someone this
not planning on having sex.
Not planning on having
This
sex. What if you just
demented,
happen to meet a girl
sure of himself.
that is like, you know what, for whatever reason, she's only 12 or 13, but man, she's a pistol, and she's all over you. What are you going to do, push her away?
Detective Kelly, this guy, he is long
Why do you bring
past
this
the
thing up?
point of being
that
swayed
was
by
my
these
I don't care where it was.
Just
in your pocket.
everyday common
What's in here?
man
Just
statements.
I believe it said like CVS, either ibuprofen or something like that.
And now they're
Yeah, that's all
talking
it is.
about the pills that
And then we
Sokol
researched
had.
this.
Right. Sorry.
You're not even,
Sorry.
why doesn't tell me this?
So I guess there were pills that they found in Jeff's possession as they were arresting him in the garage. But then there were separate pills that he was taking in front of the decoy, basically saying, this is just something I take before I eat. And so there's the school of thought that those pills prior to eating the pizza, those were for IBS. But it sounds like the pills that were in his pocket were Cialis. So it's a good question. It's like, I guess there's no way to prove that the pre-pizza pills were also Cialis, but I don't know if you'd want to double up on Cialis, but or maybe the ones in his pocket. Let's say the pills pre-pizza were Cialis. Maybe the ones in his pocket were in case that initial dose wore off, which is fucking terrible and sick to think of.
True.
I just got handcuffed. I just got handcuffed. I don't even remember answering you, to be honest with you.
But no big deal, but it's not like you had some other medicine, like I won't even pick out of the top of my head, that's like completely unrelated to any kind of sexual interlude. This is like right up that alley, right? It's correct?
And he lied about the pill too.
So the chat, the dry, the Cialis,
Yeah, no.
the fact that for some reason you think that this is like some innocent meeting between a mature 12-year-old.
I probably talked over it, but he implied that when he was being arrested in the garage, he implied that the pill in his pocket was just like an aspirin or something. So Detective Kelly was basically calling him out on that and saying, why would you lie about the nature of these pills? And Jeff's response was, I was just, you had just handcuffed me. What did you expect me to say? I don't even remember answering you. So he's chalking it up to being so shocked at being arrested that was the reason he lied about the nature of the pill in his pocket, that's bullshit.
And you,
I carry the Cialis around. I just do. And, sometimes I leave it in my car, and I just didn't want to leave it in the
does
car.
it belong in a prescription bottle?
No.
It doesn't?
Yeah.
No, that's smaller. I usually carry. I have other pills too.
No, I think in a lot of cases it's a crime to
You
carry
don't see a problem then?
medication outside of the bottle. I don't know if it applies to Cialis, but maybe not.
So you see a
Maybe
problem.
it's not. It has to be like a
I
scheduled
see
drug.
a potential problem.
Do you have like nieces, nephews, whoever in your life, in your family?
Again, that's not going to sway Jeff. Like
Other
saying, like,
ages,
what if it
or
was your daughter?
maybe
That's not going to
somewhere
work with this
around
guy.
her age?
All right, guys, that's a good place to stop. I'll see you in the next part.